Pirates have long fascinated the minds of men. Rebellious, adventurous, and free-spirited, they carved their own path in the world. After serving 10 years in the Navy, I took the plunge to write my own story. Since then, I've learned directly from some of the most savvy marketers in the game. My name is Ben Perry, and welcome to the Pirate Marketing Podcast. What is the Toolbox Fallacy, and how does that pertain to your business? This is the Pirate Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Perry, and we're going to get into the Toolbox Fallacy, which I saw on a post that someone made. It was actually not in the actual post. It was a comment, and the comment said, the good old-fashioned Toolbox Fallacy. And I'd never heard of this. I know a lot of cognitive biases, but I'd never heard of this one. And so when I looked it up, it made perfect sense because I immediately identified with it. It basically says, I have to have X before I can Y. So fill in the blank. I have to have my alpha brain before I can really get to work. I have to have my coffee in the morning before I can really start my day. Taking it a bit further, you could say, I can't begin to film videos for YouTube until I have my nice, fancy DSLR camera. And so, honestly, when you hear these, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous because you're like, well, duh. Of course, you don't need those things in order to get started. However, that's the thing about the Toolbox Fallacy is that we, inside of our minds, we justify why. It's like basically an excuse, a justified excuse to wait. And so I know that this was really important, or rather, it really happened to me a lot. You know, I originally wanted to create a podcast in 2014 called Clever Beast. And I had this idea because I thought, hey, we're human beings. We have an animal side, but we also have a very intellectual side, the left and the right brain. I thought that was actually pretty cool. How could I combine those two to create a podcast that people would just get, or at least the right people would get? And so I was like, Clever Beast. And I created this Facebook cover photo about it. And I was like, coming soon. And then I completely procrastinated on it, didn't do anything with it, and never ended up creating the show. I had these thoughts about it. Now, my Toolbox Fallacy moment was I needed to have a nice camera in order to start the show. Now, looking back on all of the things and the failures and successes that I've had, it always really came down to just taking imperfect action. And I know that that sounds so cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, because it's true. It's because that is actually how the world works. So how do you overcome, or how do you avoid Toolbox Fallacy? You have a bias for action. You just get into action, no matter what it is. Like, there's a really good quote from General George Patton, and he said, a violently executed okay plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. And that's partly why I'm recording this podcast on a Monday. I normally record these podcasts on Thursday because that's whenever I record and I publish them. But in hearing and learning about the Toolbox Fallacy, I wanted to be able to get into action quickly. And some of my mentors that I have learned from, they tell me that some of the most successful clients and students that they've ever had have had a bias towards action. In fact, they have a bias towards like speed of implementation from the thing that they actually learn. So they don't take a long time to wait to implement whatever it is. They take immediate action. And so I love clients like those, because those are the types of clients that they don't. There's a Fall Out Boy song, because I'm into Fall Out Boy. Was a big punk band dude growing up. But Fall Out Boy has a song, has a lyric that says, "I forgot to doubt myself," or "I was too young to doubt myself." And I think that as we get older, we have all of these experiences, and it goes to reason that the older that we are, the more moments of failure of experience that we actually have. And so that could create a bias to where you think, hey, let me not get burned because I remember insert all of these horrible, bad experiences that you failed. But that thought, hey, too young to doubt yourself. How many times have we seen somebody who hasn't been in the game for very long, but they just come onto the scene, somebody tells them what to do, and they just go and do it. They don't have any bad habits. They just go and do the thing, and now they start seeing success. One of my mentors, he ended up winning right from the get-go for like a good 6-7 years. And the first time that he lost, it really, it really took him for a loop. And so, Toolbox Fallacy: where in your life are you not doing the thing that you know that you should be doing because you're trying to justify needing something first before you can begin? I think that this also shows up whenever you have a deadline, whenever you're procrastinating, for sure. This weekend, I'll just give you a quick story. I had a final assignment that was due for a mastermind that I'm in. There was a last minute. Anyway, I waited last minute to do it, and I had so much resistance to doing this homework. And first, I'm like, you know what? I need to be able to print out all the pages first before I can really start on this, because I need to be able to reference it. And then I'm like, well, I can't start it without eating, so I need to go and get lunch first. And what's interesting is that on the path of, hey, I need to print this, we got a new printer. We had to set the printer up. And so then we ran into troubleshooting, trying to get the printer set up. And so it took me like a good 2.5 to 3 hours of, well, I have to, before I can start my homework. Isn't that interesting? So that's where I'm going to dock this episode. Very short episode, more of a mindset type of episode. Let me know what you think. If you like this, let me know, and I will create more of these. I'm really big on the philosophy side. I don't really share a whole lot of it right now inside of these podcast episodes, but again, I'm also finding my voice with these podcasts. I'm finding my voice, seeing how it sounds, changing things up. I'm sure that, if you've been listening for the last couple of episodes, you've seen or heard the intro change out. I've added new things. I took a page out of a favorite YouTuber that I watch. His name's Peter McKinnon, and he's really good on the sound effects. And I was like, hey, wow, yeah, let me go ahead and use some of these sound effects. And so if you listened at the beginning of this episode, I inserted a couple of sound effects, some lapping of the waves as if we're on a ship. You could hear the creaking of like a rope. In the distance, you can hear like a foghorn. The seagull is pretty easy to hear, seeing as they have a high pitch. And then I inserted the pirate sound, heave ho, like that brings a level of production value to this podcast. And I also learned how to really make the voice pop. Like, I really love that. So anyway, I'm geeking out over here. That's the kind of stuff that I like. Let me know if you want to hear more of this philosophical type things. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Savvy.